Welcome, everybody, to the, the July issue of the post-pandemic LOPSA meeting. I'm Ben Taylor. I am the, as everyone knows, the little red cooler bringer, the LOPSA MailChimp, and the janitor when we were actually meeting in physical locations. But now I'm just this guy that sits on his couch. And yeah, that's a good question. A mystery guest just asked, where is the little red cooler? It's still at Tech Systems. I left it there the last time we met there. I don't think I'll ever get it again. So yeah, that's where it is. So I'm glad everybody could make it. Before we begin and hand it off to our speaker, do we have any announcements? Oh yeah, there's our great speaker. Somebody has a hand raised. Aaron, I'm going to go ahead and promote you to speaker here because you've got your hand raised. Go ahead. All right, I allowed you to do broadcast. So there you go.
So the only announcement I have right now is that LOPSA's annual board membership election for LOPSA Global is coming up soon. I'll have a little more details come next month, and we'll probably mention it on the ETSA Slack, but we have a number of people that are either coming up for early election or slots that are going to be vacant. So if you're a LOPSA member, I would encourage you to vote once that information comes out. You'll get that in an email, as well as if you're interested, if you've been a LOPSA member for more than a year and are interested in potentially joining in the LOPSA board of directors, reach out to me and I will put you in touch.
All right. I see that Mr. Andy Cowell has raised his hand. All right, so I promoted you, Andy. You should be able to step up and give your spiel here.
Figuring out the interface again.
Okay, yeah.
Just wanted to point out the Knoxville City Hackathon is starting soon. I'm going to paste it in the chat here. I participated last year. It was a lot of fun. I would encourage anybody who's interested to join. This year it's going to all be virtual. So you can stay up all night in the comfort of your own house.
All right. Thank you, sir. Robert French, you are now promoted to the rank of speaker.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Andy who the hackathon is benefiting this year. Is it the city or is it some organization or that?
Come on down, Andy.
I don't know. As far as I know, it's a similar setup as last year.
Okay, cool. Yeah, very cool. How do I get off?
I think you can turn your cam off, maybe.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how do you. Okay.
Oh. I don't know how this works. Okay.
You own stock, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Now I just wait, your hand's back up now.
No. Oh, my.
Okay, so announcement out of the way. By the way, we have pictures from Andy Cowell and the addition of people tonight. I also want to acknowledge
He's also another one of our co-organizers. Oh, Andy's stepping up to the plate here.
Your audio was pretty bad.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, but as soon as I unmuted, you sounded good again. I'm going to mute and see what happens.
Okay. Testing audio. Testing 1, 2. How's that audio? Chat, folks. Oh, it's good? Okay. All right. Good now. Good deal. So Mr. Brad Hillis is also one of our co-organizers. So if you have a moment, shoot a chat to Brad if you have any questions about anything. I'm sure he'd be glad to answer, as well as Andy and our national board member, Aaron Hahn. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to our speaker now. Dan Ciarlette is going to talk us about the ins and outs of the Cybersecurity Maturity Model. So Dan, I'm handing it off to you. Everyone, if you'd like, give a round of applause. No one else will be able to hear, but at least we all know that we're applauding. All right, excellent. I think you're still muted.
Yeah. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. Thanks, Ben. So I offered to talk a little bit about cybersecurity model, cybersecurity maturity model, which is a big effort that the Department of Defense is doing with all of its contractors, subcontractors of subcontractors, all the way down to the bottom. The defense industry, DoD estimates there's about 300,000 companies that will require some level of CMMC certification. So I was just going to give a little bit of an introduction to what it is. I'm not going into real techie detail, but it's just sort of a flavor for it, so that people can get an idea of what it is. So let me bring up my presentation here. Well, first I have to share my screen. All right, share that screen. And let's see here. All right. All right, hopefully you can see my screen. So this is just an introduction to the cybersecurity maturity model. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. Ben will let me know if there's any I need to answer right away, or I'll be happy to answer any and all Q&A questions at the end as well. But I'm more than happy to stop anywhere through this. So I was just going to talk a little bit about what is CMMC, what the market need is, some history of it, and path forward. So what I did is I just made a word graphic of the front page of CMMCAB.org, which is the accreditation board for CMMC. And you can see, they've got practitioners, assessors, certified, assessment, professionals, stuff like that, licensed. So CMMC is the DoD had created this standard, and then they've handed it off, the execution of it, to an accreditation board, who will accredit assessors and companies and things like that, so that they can, assessors will go out, review the cybersecurity of a company to the standards that DoD has set forth, and the CMMC accreditation board has defined. So CMMC is the cybersecurity model certification, and it encompasses multiple maturity levels. They range from level 1 to level 5. Level 1 is basic cyber hygiene. To level 5 is the type of cybersecurity you would be seeing at like Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And the intent is to incorporate CMMC into the Defense Acquisition Regulation Supplement, which is called DFARs, and use it as a requirement for contract award. So there's going to be about 1,400 companies by the end of this year that will be required to be certified, so that they can win an award from DoD. And then over the next 5 years, there'll be 300,000 companies that need to be certified. So there's going to be a lot of business here, and a lot of people looking for assessors. So what's the market need? As I mentioned, it's required for all DoD contractors and subcontractors. It revolves around the type of information that goes out to these contractors. There's federal contract information and controlled unclassified information, and I'll talk about those in the next slide. You'll be all new contracts that are bid and awarded will be required to have this certification. And so you'll have, if you're a company that wins a bid, you have to prove that you have it. And if you have a bunch of subcontractors, you have to prove that your subcontractors have it. So as I mentioned, the Department of Defense estimates about 300,000 companies that'll need to be certified over the next 5 years. The other piece of this is those 300,000 companies will have to be recertified every 3 years. And so this isn't just a one-time thing and you deal with new companies. It'll be 100,000 companies every year need to be recertified. Right. So the federal contract, FCI and CUI, or I call it CUI, federal contract information is any information provided or generated for the government under contract that's not intended for public release. This could include all the way down to the specifications of how to cut the grass at some government, DoD facility by a landscaper. That would be federal contract information. Controlled unclassified information is information that requires safeguarding or dissemination controls pursuant and consistent with laws, regulations, and government-wide policies. Excluding information is classified under Executive Order 13526 and a bunch of other ones. So controlled unclassified information could be anything, that's, it could be business sensitive. It could be engineering information for a jet fighter's turbines to the engineering specifications of an oil filter. This is to ensure that this information doesn't get into the hands of people that it shouldn't get into. All right, so before CMMC, the Defense Industrial Base, actually it was the Defense, DoD created DFARS, which is the Defense Acquisition Federal Regulations Supplement. So this supplement talks about additional things that go beyond the standard federal acquisition regulations for the defense, but it's a supplement to that for cybersecurity. And so it mandated that the defense contractors adopt NIST SP 800-171 cybersecurity framework. Okay, and so NIST 800-171 cybersecurity framework revolves around companies that have to manage the controlled unclassified information. And DFARS said that the companies would have to meet the compliance needs of it and self-attest that they meet those needs. And they had a capability of, if they were deficient in something, they could create what's called a POAM, which is a plan of action and milestones, which were, hey, I've got this deficiency. This is how I plan to fix it, and the milestones that I need to meet to get that done. So what ended up happening is companies said, "Oh yeah, I meet it all, no problem." Some companies pencil whipped it and just blatant out, flat out lied. Other companies started to do it and didn't do a very good job. They lacked training. They lacked the knowledge of how to do it. They lacked the cybersecurity rigor that it takes. They lacked management support, things like that. And because of that, they didn't meet those POAMs, the plan of action and milestones, for deficiencies that they needed to get fixed. But then there were other companies that did a really good job, and they did it all right. They had very good cybersecurity. But what that meant was they were spending money to make that work, and other companies weren't doing anything. And then they were going for the same contracts. And so the company doing the cybersecurity right may have had to have a higher overhead, and so they weren't winning bids. So it created unfair competition between companies that adopted it fully and then others that didn't. But the worst problem is the companies kept leaking information out. They were leaking out the drawings to the jet fighters. They were leaking out, all this type of information that foreign actors were able to get a hold of. And so we were, hemorrhaging all of our, DoD information through these companies that didn't have very good cybersecurity. So, so this is the history with CMMC. So they in 2019, if you watch the industry, you're starting to see early releases of the CMMC standard. They had a release 0.4 and a 0.6 that had a lot of good press, and that's when people started to understand what it meant. Katie Arrington, the deputy CISO for DoD, started going around and giving talks everywhere. The woman is amazing, considering the fact that she was almost died in an accident 2 years earlier. But she's out there just getting the word out, evangelizing CMMC. And so in January of 2020, CMMC version 1.0 document was publicly available. And I have a link at the end to show you where you can go to see that. And so this was a standard that was created between DoD and Carnegie Mellon University. So you'll find that another standard that was created by them which is CMMI, which is the Capability Maturity Model Index. There's a little bit of family familiarity with them. In February of 2020, a CMMC accreditation board was formed. And so the accreditation board is a non-for-profit company that whose job is to manage the CMMC standard as defined by DoD, take it over, and add additional capabilities, including creating the exams for the assessors, so that the assessors can, you have to pass exams just like like the typical IT and cyber exams that we all have to do to be an assessor, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But they also manage the companies that employ the assessors and the companies that do assessment preparation, all of that consulting, things like that. So they were created to get things moving. They created some working groups. I joined the what was called the industry working group to help out with defining how to take the CMMC standard and make it a little more user friendly, and how to basically we made an assessment guide for the assessors. And the assessment guide was written so that people, if you had a good cyber and IT background, could read the guide, figure out what was needed, and then have that ready for the assessors, so that when the assessors came, you could have a successful assessment and get your certification. In May of 2020, the CMMC Accreditation Board started having public discussions, and those are posted on their website to educate the whole community about this. And this is pretty amazing, considering that they were formed in February. In May, they're already getting out there and talking about all of this, and they're all volunteers. July of 2020, which was really just last week, the applications for entities started, so that the companies that were going to employ assessors, the assessors themselves, the consultants, things like that, could apply to get whatever credentials they needed to successfully be whatever entity that they wanted to be. So the modern times, which is this month, so we had the CMMC accreditation board entity sign up started with the applications with payment. So now this is, this is getting real. We're paying money. The certified third-party assessment organizations, also called C3PAOs, not to be confused with the droid from Star Wars. They hire and train assessors, and then they schedule and set up contracts, schedule and set up contracts with OSCs. OSCs are at the bottom. That's the organizations seeking certification. So if you're Raytheon, and you're going to have to get your level. Well, right now the maximum you can get is a level 3, but Raytheon would be a level 5 company. So they would go in and find a certified third-party assessment organization to come assess them. And so then they would set up a contract with them. The assessors, there's no abbreviation or acronym for the assessors. It's just assessors. Everything else has an abbreviation or a acronym. There's 2 flavors. There are certified professionals, or CPs. The certified professionals, that's the first exam you have to take. And you can't, as an assessor, recommend a certification for any company. The best way I'd put it is these are the folks that go out and really gather the data, work with the companies to get the information. Then there's the level 1 assessor. The level 1 assessor is able to assess companies up to obviously level 1. From there, so a level 1 assessor has had to take the CP exam, certified professional exam, and the level 1 assessor exam. The next exam you would take is to become a level 3 assessor. And so the level 3 assessors are able to assess companies at level 1, level 2, and level 3. And they can use certified professionals to help them out. So that the certified professionals would go out, gather all the information. The level 3 assessor would sort of manage all the information, review it, work with the CPs to determine whether or not that they would assess or certify a company at that level. Then level 5 assessors, once again, to be a level 5 assessor, you have to pass the level 5 assessor exam. So by now, you have had to take the CP exam, the level 1 exam, the level 3 exam, and now the level 5 exam to be a level 5 assessor. And then you could use any of the downstream folks to help you out to gather the data to do the assessment. Any questions, Ben? Just making sure. Okay, guess not. Let me make sure. Okay, just making sure. So now there's also the registered provider organizations, RPOs. These are the companies that will go out and help a company be prepared for an assessor to come. So a company says, I really don't know if we're even close to it. I don't have the technical expertise or the time to deal with it. We're just going to get a company in to help us out. And so there's 2 types of people that the registered provider organizations can use to do that. Registered practitioners, which is right below it, or they could use assessors, but the assessors could not assess the company that they helped out prepare for the assessment. That would be a conflict of interest. And then the last group of people is the organization seeking certification. So these are the companies that are these 300,000 companies that will need to be certified as having a level 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 CMMC certification. The company I work for, Boston Government Services, we have just applied to be a certified third-party assessment organization. We've also applied to be a registered provider organization. So the certified third-party assessment organization costs $3,000 to apply to get it, and the registered provider organization is $5,000. And then the assessors, the maximum that they can currently do is a level 3 assessor. So we went for level 3, and that's $1,000 per person. So we have 5 people that we've signed up for that. And then we'll start training other people and getting them set up to be the certified professionals. And we probably, well, we may or may not do the registered practitioners. I'm determining if we need to do that or not, since we are assessors or CPs. So with this, if you're a certified third-party assessment organization or a registered provider organization, once you've applied and been certified to do that, you will then be added to the CMMC marketplace, which is where companies who need assessments will go and sign up with somebody to do the assessment or the pre-assessment consulting capabilities, or even the post-assessment. If you like, you may have wanted to go for level 3, but you were only capable of getting to level 2. So you need help to get to level 3. All right, so the CMMC Accreditation Board approves applications for all the organizations and people mentioned on the previous slide. And once you're approved, you're placed on this marketplace. Okay, so I've talked a lot about the history of it. I've talked a lot about the accreditation items for it. But what I haven't really talked about is what CMMC is really about. So what is it? It's a standard framework for cybersecurity maturity. And it consists of 5 levels. The levels have 2 different features, processes and practices. From level 1 to 5, you're starting at level 1, think of it as like a pyramid. You build each one up. So you have these practices that you have to do for each one of these and processes. And so the level 1, you just have to show that you do them. So like account management, it could be as simple as, well, when I hire someone, I give them an account. And when they leave, I delete their account. And that's being performed. You don't have it written down on how you're doing it, but you're doing it. This is actually hard for an assessor to assess. So you have to essentially just verbally ask people, what happens when you do this or what happens when you do that. Level 2 is when you have it documented. So now I've got a document that says, what is the process to onboard an employee? What's the process to offboard an employee? Okay, so now you have it documented. And so an assessor would go in, make sure people understood how to do it, and that they know where the documentation was and they followed it. That's about it. So level 1 is basic cyber hygiene, 2 is intermediate cyber hygiene. Level 3 is managed. Okay, so now what does that mean? Well, I do 1, I know how to add and delete users, and I do level 2, I have it documented, and level 3 is I have a process that makes sure I do it right. Then you go to level 4, I review it, which means that I periodically go and verify all my employees and all the accounts that they have, stuff like that. And then 5 is optimizing. How do you do it better? Those practices are the advanced ones, that type of stuff. So that is the framework for it. Okay, so what do you actually do with the framework? So it's based on multiple standards that exist. And so the CMMC has pulled the best of the standards and applied them in a graded approach from level 1 to level 5. The NIST SP 800 standards, which include 800, 171, 853, 837, are the ones that they pull from for CMMC. In addition to the U.S. federal regulations and the defense, federal acquisition requirements supplemental guidance that they had. They took all of this and they figured out for each one of these levels, what would you expect someone to do? Because like the landscaping company I mentioned, they probably only need to perform their processes with basic cyber hygiene, so they could be level 1. They're pretty much going to get the specifications of, hey, go to this address. Here's the area that you need to cut the grass and whatever, and the height that you need to cut it, and that's about it.
We have a question.
Okay.
We've actually got a couple of them. We've got one. Okay. What if I lie? And I guess by that means, how are you, verifying what's being reported? I'm assuming, right? Uh-huh. And the other one is, does CMMC address automated versus manual processes?
Okay, good questions. So what if you lie? The assessor will have to gather evidence. That will be either interviews and observations, screenshots, things like that. That will provide them a level of assurance that you're doing what you're saying. So, like, let's say if I'll use the account example. If the president of the company is the one answering the questions and says, "Yeah, my secretary adds and deletes the people out of Office 365." And she does a great job at it. And then you go, so then you might do a little bit more interviewing of things. Then you would go to his secretary and you ask the secretary, how do you add an account or how do you delete an account? Well, if the secretary is like, well, I don't know how to delete an account, and you go, well, what do you do when you hire an employee? Well, I just add the account. Well, when they leave, what do you do? I don't know. Well, that could be a finding that could blow their ability to get a level 1 assessment because they're performing it, but they're not doing it very well, if at all. Yeah. So the assessment guide walks people through how to what types of questions to ask, what things to look for, what things that they should expect to be able to answer those questions. And automated systems is really where you start to hit the managed reviewing and optimizing. That means you've got really good cyber hygiene. You're being proactive because you've got automated systems. Automated systems are great. It's just the assessor will need to be able to take a look at it. An example would have to be pulled so that we can verify that the automated system is doing the account management properly, or whatever, the syslogging or whatever item that we're talking about is being done. So hopefully that answers your question. If not, we can talk about it more after. Okay, so all right, so I talked about what the levels are based on. So CMMC contains 17 domains and capabilities. Everything from account control to recovery to risk management, situational awareness, media access. If you've lived in I know a number of people worked at O&L. I did too. If you've worked at O&L and did anything with IT or cybersecurity, you've probably been dealing with a lot of these items already. If you worked in a private company doing work for the federal government, then you may have been dealing with NIST 800-171, which this looks almost identical to 800-171 because that is where most of this information comes from for CMMC. So, you know, and where 171 is a little deficient, CMMC does refer to 853. When we were writing the assessment guide, there were a few spots where 171 was a little unclear. So we just dived into 853 and referred to the things there. I fully expect NIST to, over the next few years, to start to maybe even create a special NIST for or evolve 171, which now they have 172, into a CMMC level special publication. Okay, so to get all the way up to level 5, there's 171 practices that you have to be assessed against. And so the confusing thing is that when you look at these levels, you see level 1 is 17 practices, level 2 is 72 practices, which is really 17. It encompasses the level 1 17 practices. But where people get hung up is they really do the math and say, oh, it's just 17 plus 52 new practices. And that's not the case. You're at level 1, you're doing those 17 practices at a level 1 maturity. When you move to level 2, yes, you do those 17 practices in addition to the 57 more, but you're doing those 17 practices at a level 2 maturity. And using the same 17 practices, you'll still use them at level 5, but you'll now use them at a level 5 maturity. So it's additive, but it's not quite incremental. So it's not 17 plus 50 plus 55. Yeah, so it's not 17 plus 55. It's really 17 now done at level 2 maturity and 55 more practices. And then it's the 72 for level 3. It's 72 done at level 3 maturity plus the difference, to get up to 130. That's an area that really gets people. It's because of the fact that you have to do it at the maturity level that you're being certified at. It's not at the maturity level that practice was first defined. So you can see, we're talking about, the NIST 800-171. Now the interesting thing is that level 1 and 2 only can handle federal contract information, FCI. If you have to deal with controlled unclassified information, you have to be at level 3. Level 3 is a full 800-171 implementation, plus a few extra things added in. It's the rainbow sprinkles added on top of the donut. But mainly it's 171, including things like having a SIM tool, being in-house or having it a third-party company doing it for you. And by the way, if you have a third-party company doing it for you, guess what? If any of that controlled unclassified information crosses that boundary, then they have to be CMMC certified because they're a subcontractor to you. So managed service providers will have a interest in becoming CMMC Level 3 certified, at least as this evolves. All right, so that's really all I'm getting into right now. I didn't get into every one of the little practices and stuff like that. It's more or less just trying to get people familiar with the idea of that CMMC is here. DoD is serious about this. Even with COVID-19, they are not letting this schedule slip much because of the fact that they've got contracts that are just ready and waiting for companies to get certified. The CMMC Advisory Board has already went through the first trial assessor training. So I hope that the assessor training will be available for us to start taking over the next month or two. And at that point, the first set of assessments are not the companies go out and bid on the marketplace. DoD or the advisory board will assign the assessors to the companies to go assess due to geographical proximity, specialized needs, things like that, because they need to get this done so quickly to get these first set of companies up and running, to be able to get the contracts going with DoD, that they're really, really serious about this. And at that point, then the marketplace becomes more of a free market. The references below are just the references to the NIST documents. Even if you don't work for a defense contractor or subcontractor or the government, they're really, really worth looking at and understanding. They've got a lot of good information in there that you can use just to make yourself a better IT professional or cybersecurity professional. The last link is the CMMC standard itself, which oddly enough, it's still under the draft HTML URL, even though it is the first official version of it. And it's a great read if you want to go to sleep at night. But it's got a lot of good information in it. And once again, even if you don't work for the government or a DoD contractor, it's really worthwhile. I just saw in NextGov news that there is a GSA contract called STARS 3 that now has CMMC wording in the RFP, and that is outside of DoD. Now, it may be because STARS 3 can support DoD, but there's a lot of other agencies that are looking at CMMC as a mechanism to require their contractors and subcontractors to have a certain level of cybersecurity maturity. So this could really just go gangbusters throughout all of the federal government, DOE, DHS, Department of Interior, Department of State. I mean, every agency out there could start using this. Any questions? Oh, the flashbacks. Ben, you're muted.
I am muted. There we go. All right. So where can I go to get started? Is the first question.
All right. There's two definitions of getting started. If you want to learn more about CMMC, I would go to cmmcab.org, and from there it will direct you to the DoD CMMC documents, which was on the last page of my slide, and I'm going to clean these up and send them out, so if people wanted to see them, they can see them. But the so that's the first step. If you want to get started to be a certified professional or an assessor, then you would go to cmmcab.org, and there is a link on the top to do that. The thing that they really don't mention too much about is like it's $1,000 to pay for all of the exams up front to be a level 3 assessor. They don't mention how much it costs for the training because they don't have the certified trainers yet. I mean, this is really a chicken and the egg thing. Essentially, they're going to have a small group of trainers that will be training trainers and training assessors all at the same time, so that they can get the assessors out. So the first set of assessors will sort of be the special assessors that, and to get it kickstarted. Then it'll get to a point where you'll go take training, you'll pay for an exam, you'll get certified at that level, and you keep going up to the next level. They've only chosen to go up to CMMC level 3 this year, just because they don't have enough of a lift in terms of capacity to get all of the trainers up to being able to train at level 5. They don't have the training materials to get to level 5. They don't have enough assessors, so they're trying to learn getting up to level 3, how to finish level 4 and level 5.
All right. Will other departments, I guess, besides Department of Defense, right, be using this?
So DHS has already expressed interest in it. If the CMMC process works, and I mean, we're trying to make sure it does work, but it depends. The rubber really hits the road when you start to go out to companies and assessing them. You can think of assessors just like doing a accounting audit for a company. So you have your CPA that will be the head assessor, and you'll have a bunch of people that for a large company it'd be a bunch of people. For a smaller company, it might be them and a CP. We'll go through and do the interviews, capture all the evidence and stuff like this, and then we'll make a determination. You won't really get anybody complaining if you go, yep, you got your assessment, you passed, because that means that they can go bid on that contract. When you have to, as an assessor, say you didn't pass, and you have X number of days to fix it before and by the way, you got to pay us to come back to look at that. So it's going to be an additional travel time and hours of effort to do it. Then you're going to have people balking because then they're going to go, well, I interpreted that differently. And I mean, I think everybody here knows that you can interpret a cybersecurity requirement in about 15 billion different ways. And everybody has their favorite little way of doing it and stuff like that. In the industry working group that I was on with the assessment guide, it was really difficult, and we had to really think about the wording that we used to say how you had to go about proving something was met and being vendor neutral. And because you can't say, well, this is what you need to do. You have to go on your Cisco switch and go to this setting, and if this setting is there, then you pass. You can't do that. You have to say, you have to you have to talk about your spanning tree and discuss how to make sure that it is set up properly and stuff like that. You can't just say how to do it in one little area. We have been meeting with with Microsoft, and we're going to be starting to meet with AWS, to talk about how they are making it easy for the customers to be able to show that they meet the requirements, so that a company who may be on AWS at level 2, and so they've got all their servers up on AWS. How do they show that all their AWS pieces of it are meeting CMMC? They may know enough to spin up their servers, set up their firewalls, all that type of stuff, but they may not know enough to use all the right AWS terminology. And so we're working with them to understand that they need to do that. So we're trying to make that easier for companies, which will make it easier for everyone in the end to have more secure systems. I don't know if I answered that question or not. I probably went down some rabbit hole. But
another question we've got is there anything easier than these tomes for learning this stuff? It looked pretty hefty.
Right now, no. The assessment guide is a little bit easier than reading NIST 800-171. It has more normal words in it to try and, but it also has all the NIST 171 references in it. So that is not public yet. The CMMC will make that public eventually. The word that we got from the folks that did the first, forgot what they called the term, for the trial training, which wasn't really real training. It was some mock training that they were doing. Was that the assessment guide had a lot of good content, and they liked it. That doesn't mean that it won't get changed between now and when it comes out. The other thing that we really struggled with was, so CMMC is a general framework and discussion of what you need that's based on NIST 800-171, which is an evolving standard. And so how do you assess someone on something if, let's say, NIST, like NIST 800-172 draft just came out? So in about a year from now, there'll be NIST 800-171, NIST 800-172. Well, at what point does CMMC say that you have to start assessing that? And so we have to start to deal with how to deal with evolving standards within these accreditations. Going back to financial audits, generally accepted accounting principles haven't changed too much over the last 20 years. You pretty much, you do double entry accounting, and I'm sure there's the various nuances beyond my knowledge, but cybersecurity, it's evolving, and it's evolving fast. 10 years ago, microservices and Kubernetes and stuff like that, we weren't doing that. Now we are. And so now we have to have that type of stuff encompassed in our cybersecurity standards. So it gets complicated.
Are there any tools? This is another question. Are there any tools I can use to test my compliance on a set of systems or a network?
That's a good question. Right now, the answer is no. The best you could do is use STIGs and try and understand at what STIG level it would equate to a level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That's one of the things that we're looking at is having something like STIGs. But STIGs are normally used for DoD compliance for highly sensitive systems. It really doesn't test whether or not you have your admin adding a username and password, a user to Office 365. But there will be tools and templates and stuff coming out that we'll talk about that.
That was the next question that came up after that. Tell us what a STIG is.
Oh man, I use that term so often. that is a if somebody can tell me what what STIG stands for, please put it in the chat or Q&A. There's a STIG tool that you can get for government systems. There we go. Thanks, Caleb. That gives you a rating up to 100. But essentially, 100 is like if you secure a house to a STIG standard, that means you just filled the house full of concrete, and so no one's going to get in or out. No one's going to steal anything. Security technical implementation guides. I'm sure there will be tools like this that will come out, but once again, these are the CMMC is a very holistic, complete system, and so there's so many variances of what people do in terms of routers and switches and ISPs and tools that they're using and versions of things. It's almost next to impossible to build a tool. And that's where the CPOs come in, whereas they can come in, take a look at your systems, essentially go through, and they'll have all the templates, they'll fill them all out for you, so that when you go to hire an assessor, when the assessor comes, you've got everything that you need, all the documentation. You just start putting it out there.
All right, excellent. I've got another one. Actually, one came into a private chat for me. Are there recommendations for air gap networks?
As long as you follow the requirements, there isn't a recommendation whether you have an air gap or not.
All right. And we got a couple more minutes here. There are, if I don't work for a DoD subcontractor, but just want to be more secure, can I use this?
Yes. Yeah, it's highly encouraged. And you can take a look at it. You can tailor it to your own capabilities. It would not surprise me if insurance companies that do that insure companies for cybersecurity events won't start saying, "Hey, you've got to meet these requirements." We won't insure you unless you meet level 2. Those types of things.
Do we have any other questions? All right. Thank you very much, Dan. It's been very helpful. Go ahead and put right now in the chat the link to the after party. We have an after party, another floor space opened up for 8 to 10 p.m. tonight. So there we go. There's the link for it if you guys don't already have it. By all means, join us.
Oh, okay.
It was a great talk. We appreciate you. And we'll, I hope to see you. Yeah, hope to see you at the after party. We can talk some more.
Yeah, I'll be going inside and hooking up to my power supply.
All right, guys. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right, bye.
All right, bye.